Yo, what up? This is Rafael from NBA Big Board, and in this episode, I'm going to give you a revised version of my mock draft 1.0 that dropped on NBABigBoard.com. And the reason it is revised is because there were some changes after the play-in games. I'm a Blazers fan. My Blazers had 2 picks in the top 15 last week, and now they're down to 1. But stay tuned as I give you the updated version of my mock draft 1.0. All right, once again, this is Rafael from NBA Big Board. Shout out to each and every person that has made NBA Big Board, the NBA Big Board podcast, your first listen of the day. And in this case, since it is Monday morning, it is your first listen of the week. And this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. And that is because BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, like I mentioned earlier, there were some changes made in the draft order based off of the play-in. So if you checked out the article that I wrote on NBABigBoard.com last week, this is different. There'll be few changes made, just a few changes made. I know, like I said, I'm a Blazers fan. My Blazers had 2 first-round picks, and now we're down to 1. All right, let's get started. So with the number 1 pick, and this is based off of the standings, but with the number 1 pick, it is the Houston Rockets, and I have the Rockets selecting Paolo Banchero. If you've been following me, you know I'm a big Banchero fan. I've been driving the Banchero bandwagon all season long. Now, I understand that Houston could go in a number of directions here. They could go with Jabari Smith. They can go with Chet Holmgren. I personally like Paolo Banchero. Now, I know, and I've had some people reach out to me, I know that many feel that Houston needs a defensive presence to play alongside Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., so they don't think that Paolo would be the best fit. But here's why I think he would be. I think a Banchero, Alperen Sengun front court would be dynamic on the offensive end. Both guys can score on the low post. I think both guys are very good passers, and I think that they could really complement each other. And I still feel like Banchero was not properly used to maximize his strengths at Duke. He was mostly used as an isolation scorer that was featured on the block. But I think in the NBA, he'll be able to showcase his ball handling skills, his passing, and there'll be more spacing. And I think an NBA coach would be a lot more creative. Here's a funny scenario or comparison. I think that Banchero could be very similar to Detroit Pistons Blake Griffin. Now, when I say Detroit Pistons Blake Griffin, I'm not talking about the guy that was injured. I'm talking about the 2018-19 version of Blake Griffin. That year, he was healthy. He was playing like this point forward position, and he was averaging like 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. I think that could be Paolo Banchero in his prime. And number 2, I have the Orlando Magic selecting Jabari Smith. And no matter who the Magic take, no matter what direction they go in, it's going to be someone with an overlapping skill set. Now, Smith is arguably the best shooter. He has the size, length, and athleticism to defend multiple positions, so it can be a no-brainer. Orlando was pretty low as far as three-point shooting. I think they only shot 32.9% from 3 as a team, so they could use Jabari Smith's outside shooting. Best case scenario, Smith becomes the guy that creates like this defined pecking order in Orlando. I feel like if you ask 5 different players on Orlando, who is the best player on the team, who is the future of the team, who is their franchise guys, you may get 5 different players. So best case scenario, Jabari Smith becomes this inside-outside presence that, again, creates a defined pecking order in Orlando. But they could also take a look at Chet Holmgren. But I think Jabari Smith is the answer here. All right, at number 3, and this is where the draft starts. This is a big surprise. I actually have Jaden Ivey leapfrogging Chet Holmgren. I have the Pistons selecting Ivey, and I think that, when you have to look at Troy Weaver's history, he is known for selecting Russell Westbrook back in 2008. Westbrook was this electrifying, super athletic guard that many did not feel had a natural position. Some thought he was a 1, some thought he was a 2. but he was a tweener. And that is what Jaden Ivey is considered. I think his best position may be as a point guard, but I see him more so as a guy that just kind of has basic passing instincts in a sense. I mean, I think he's a driving kick passer. I don't think he's like this dynamite playmaker that's going to make these amazing reads, but with his speed and his dribble penetration, I mean, he can literally collect 8 or 9 assists per game off dump offs. But if he's in Detroit, he's not going to be the primary ball handler because that role belongs to Cade Cunningham, and I think that will maximize Ivey's strengths as a secondary ball handler. It will give the Pistons some athleticism. I don't know what that means for Killian Hayes, but I like the Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey backcourt. And Ivey would be able to play some primary point guard or primary ball handler in the second unit. So it would give the Pistons a situation where they have 2 dynamic ball handlers, or at least 1 dynamic ball handler on the floor at all times. So I like the Jaden Ivey to the Pistons scenario there. All right, at number 4, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting Chet Holmgren. Now, this is pretty much a no-brainer. All they have to do is select the best player that is available, that is left out of the guys that many feel are in a top tier. And Holmgren would, it would be such a Sam Presti pick. Holmgren would provide the Thunder with some interior presence, which is likely a priority going into the offseason. Now, I mean, he may not be like this physical interior presence, but he gives them a shot blocker, he gives them a rebounder, and the Thunder are in a good position. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is their franchise guy. Josh Giddey, could be first-team all-rookie. Then you add in Holmgren, and you get a very important piece to your rebuilding puzzle that is a good fit, I think. Now, Holmgren and Aleksej Pokusevski would be like the most incredibly thin front court in NBA history. They would struggle with physicality, but man, it would be a unique front court with skills and passing. It would be fun to watch. Don't know how many games they would win, but I'm visualizing the Thunder with like these crazy lineups. All right, at number 5, I have the Indiana Pacers selecting Keegan Murray. Now, he may not be the sexiest prospect, but you can make a case and say he was the most productive player in college basketball. And I know he doesn't have like this ideal athleticism or vertical pop. And some may feel like he doesn't have a great upside because he is a little bit older for his class. But you're talking about a guy that was inside, outside, and he was a pretty good defender. He got blocks, he got steals. But what's interesting about Murray is if you look at his body type, he does not strike you as a guy that does most of his damage in transition. And that's exactly what he did. He excels as a transition finisher. Again, 39.8% from 3. I think that he would thrive playing next to Tyrese Halliburton and would be a good complement, maybe a better complement than Sabonis was for Miles Turner. At number 6, I have my Portland Trailblazers selecting Benedict Mathurin. Mathurin is your plug-and-play 3-and-D guy. I think he's NBA ready, and that's at the minimum. I think if he can continue to make strides as a ball handler and show more offensive creativity, I think the sky's the limit. I definitely believe that he has some upside as a guy that can generate his own offense off the dribble. And again, he showed some improvements. Now, 10 years ago, the Blazers had the 6th pick, and they selected this guy named Damian Lillard, and I think that worked out well. So maybe 10 years later, Mathurin could be the next franchise guy for the Blazers. At number 7, I have the Sacramento Kings selecting AJ Griffin. Now, Griffin is someone that can definitely help the Kings. They traded away their best shooters in Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton in the trade that sent Sabonis to the Pacers. So they definitely need someone like AJ Griffin that can knock down open shots. Griffin shot around like 44% from 3 this year. But I think that he has more game than he was able to showcase. He was coming off an injury, so he was a little bit passive and wasn't the slasher that he was prior to college or before the injuries. But this will all depend on his medical records. If his medicals check out good, then he could easily be a top 5 to 7 pick. If there are some concerns there, then you could see him fall out of the lottery. But I think Griffin addresses a need for the Kings in outside shooting. And if he can become like the slasher that he was before, then the Kings have a real steal there with that pick. All right, before I get into the next round of players, I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. Now, I was living overseas, and I came back home, and I had like this big box, and I'm trying to figure out, where does this box coming from? I know I didn't order anything, but it was a box of Athletic Greens. So I decided to go ahead and try it out, and it has definitely been worth it. So shout out to the people at Athletic Greens for sending me a box. So you may say, Rafael, what is Athletic Greens? Well, with just one scoop, just one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, and they will help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery focus, and aging. Basically, everything that you want. Now, I give you some facts. It is very lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while it still tastes good. Now, it supports better sleep, which is something that I have been struggling with because I've been going back and forth between 2 different continents with a 6 or 7 hour time difference. So Athletic Greens has helped me get a little bit better sleep. It supports mental clarity and alertness. So right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NBA Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And while you're taking your Athletic Greens, I'm going to suggest you try a Built Bar, but specifically the Built Bar Puffs. If you haven't tried one, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. The Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they're covered with 100% real chocolate. Puffs have been a fan favorite because of the incredible flavors. They got this yummy cinnamony churro. They got coconut marshmallow. They got banana pie. I mean, these are going to be your favorite. And again, let me remind you that these are covered with 100% real chocolate. Yes, 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. They will replace your candy bars with ease because they're better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Now, if you go to built.com, and if you scroll down to the macros chart, you'll be blown away. It's high protein, low calories, high fiber, low carbs, and most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, which if you compare that to a candy bar, it's like 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So check out some of the flavors: mint brownie, coconut almond, and what I call the Jason Williams white chocolate cookies and cream flavor. That is my favorite. They're all delicious, and there's new flavors coming out all the time. But at Built Bar, it's not about, well, put it like this. Let me get this correct. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then they figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every time. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your next order. Once again, this is Rafael Barlowe from NBA Big Board, and thank you for making the NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, I would advise you to check out the Locked On Now podcast. It gives you nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from my local experts. It is free, and it is available wherever you get your podcast. All right, I left off at number 7, and now at number 8, and this is the biggest wild card in the draft. I have Shaedon Sharpe from Kentucky. Well, he is at Kentucky, but he never played a game for Kentucky. But he is the biggest wild card in the draft. Now, there are rumors and rumblings that he is going to return to school and not enter the NBA draft. I think that is very interesting. Unless that NIL money at Kentucky is more valuable than being a top 10 pick, it just doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. To me, that is. Doesn't make a lot of sense for him to return to school because I think at this point, he is a lock to go in the top 10 despite only scoring as many points and rebounds as me and you and everybody else that is listening to this podcast. He did not score a single point, did not play a single game, and all of this is based off of the incredible season he had last summer in the EYBL. But he is your big wing shot maker, just has tremendous upside and potential. And I have the Pelicans selecting him at number 8. I think he'll be a good fit in New Orleans simply because they already have their stars in place with Zion Williamson, if he ever plays. But Zion, I mean, if you're not going to play, then you got to look good on the bench. And that chain that Zion had on last night was, I mean, the diamonds were dancing. It was a distraction. But if Zion is playing, you got Brandon Ingram, you got CJ McCollum. You have a good foundation there in New Orleans. And if you add Shaedon Sharpe to the mix, and if he ends up being the player that we think he is, then the Pelicans have a really, really bright future. That is, if Zion wants to be there. At number 9, I have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Jalen Duren from Memphis. Now, the last time the Spurs picked this high in the draft, it was back in 1997. Now, back in 1997, I was a high school senior. That's how long ago it was. I'm 42 years old. And the last time the Spurs picked this high, they ended up with the number 1 pick in the draft. And they got this guy named Tim Duncan. Now, it would be pretty ironic if the Spurs end up with a guy like Jalen Duren, and then he's able to be tutored and mentored by Tim Duncan. If that's the case, and Duncan is able to teach Duren some of his tricks, then he could be the center of the future for the Spurs. Now, right now, Duren should really be preparing for the prom. He is 18 years old. He reclassified and basically skipped a year. Still a little bit raw, but he is just like Dwight Howard type build. I mean, just crazy physically mature for his age and has shown glimpses of a low post game. But I think the area that really has stood out to me that he has shown flashes is his passing skills. I think he could be a pretty good short roll passer. Now, again, if Duncan can mentor Duren, then the Spurs have their center of the future. All right, at number 10, I have the Washington Wizards selecting Johnny Davis. Now, depending on what happens with Brad Beal, we don't know if Brad Beal is going to leave in free agency. We don't know what is going to happen there. But I think Davis would be a good insurance policy. And if you like players that play hard, and I think playing hard is a skill, but if you like guys that play hard every possession, then you'll love Johnny Davis. Now, he's not just like the scrappy, hard-playing role player. I mean, he is skilled. He is a shot maker. He rebounds like a center. I mean, he averages more rebounds per game than some of the centers that we are projecting to be top 10 picks. He averages over 8 rebounds a game, a little under 20 points, and he is capable of some major, major scoring outbursts. And again, I think he could be a good insurance policy regardless. Well, he's a good insurance policy if Bill decides to leave. And if Bill stays, then I think he gives the Wizards another guy that can give them some instant offense. All right, at number 11, oh, man. Last week I had Tari Eason going to the Trailblazers at number 11. But now with all the changes being made based off the play-in, the New York Knicks are on the clock at number 11, and I have the Knicks selecting Ty Washington. Now, when I posted this last week, Knicks fans were upset because they feel like Emmanuel Quickley is their point guard of the future. Even if he is, you still need some depth at point guard. I mean, Derrick Rose, don't know how much longer you can depend on Rose. The Kemba Walker experience is over. You can still add some depth. I think Ty is more so of a natural point guard than Quickley. So I have the Knicks selecting Ty Washington at number 11. At number 12, falling down the spot based off of the changes, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are now back in the lottery again, selecting Tari Eason. Now, you may say Eason and Chet Holmgren play a very similar position, but I like Eason's upside as this defensive playmaker. I mean, he can create his own offense in transition. He plays with a lot of energy. He gets to the free throw line a significant amount of times just based off of his effort, hustle, and I think that he has some upside as a shot creator. Also, saw some passes that he made that tells me that, he can be comfortable playing with the ball. Just a Swiss Army knife that fills up the stat sheet on both ends of the floor. He rebounds, he defends, he blocks shots, he gets steals. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Patrick Williams, and I think that would be a good fit for the Thunder at number 12. All right, before I finish out the rest of the lottery, I want to talk to the audience about Bet Online, and that's because Bet Online is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including this year's playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Bet Online is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. And that is because BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, at number 13, the Charlotte Hornets. And I have them selecting Mark Williams from Duke. Now, Michael Jordan does not have to go far to find the center of the future. I thought Mark Williams made himself a lot of money in the NCAA tournament. I mean, he was good all year, but on the big stage, he showed his importance to Duke with his shot blocking, his rebounding, his energy and effort. I think he would give LaMelo Ball a legitimate vertical lob threat. Now, I know that Zeller and Plumlee are pretty good athletically, but I think Mark Williams just has a different level of vertical pop and energy. And I think that he would be a good running mate for LaMelo, because at this point, the Hornets have their franchise guy. Now you just have to find players that fit around him and complement him, and I think Mark Williams would be a good complement there. All right, rounding out the lottery, it is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I have the Cavaliers selecting Dyson Daniels from the G League Ignite team. Daniels would give the Cavs good positional size in the backcourt. I know going into the season there were concerns about the Darius Garland, Colin Sexton backcourt. They were too small. I personally was not a fan of both of them. It's almost like Sexton's injury was kind of like a blessing in disguise, as Garland has clearly separated himself as, he was an all-star. He's clearly separated himself as their point guard, as their best guard. And now I think with Evan Mobley, that is, being a candidate for Rookie of the Year, you got Jared Allen, who was an all-star. The Cavs have like their foundation set. Now you're just looking for complementary pieces. I think that Daniels allows them to, if they decide to keep Sexton, allows them to, just have some versatility in the backcourt. You can play Sexton and Daniels together. You can play Daniels and Garland together. I think Dyson Daniels is like this Lonzo Ball type glue connective tissue that can just play different positions and just kind of make everyone around him better. So I like that pick there. All right, at number 15, it is the Hornets back on the clock again. And now I'm going to speed through this for the last segment. And I have the Hornets selecting Jeremy Sohan from Baylor. Now, Sohan, in my opinion, he was the better of the two Baylor freshmen, even though he was not as highly touted as Kendall Brown. Sohan is this guy that I think is just going to be able to play multiple positions. He has the size to play both forward spots. Still a little raw on the offensive end, but he's shown enough flashes of being able to score on offense he can post up a little bit. He can score as like a cutter. He needs to work on his shot, but I just think like the sky's the limit for him. He has so many things that he does well. With the right development program, he could end up being a high-level starter. At number 16, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Nikola Jovic, not to be confused with Nikola Jokic. Jovic is like another Swiss Army knife. He can shoot a little bit. He can make plays for others. He can post up. He can score. He is versatile at 6'10". And something about what they have in the water in Serbia. They're producing these multi-skilled bigs, whether it's Nikola Jokic, whether it's Alexis Pokashevsky, and then you got Nikola Jovic. It's easy to get them confused. The sad thing is, we don't know what's going to happen with Atlanta. Atlanta has a lot of redundancy there, so there's not a clear path for any rookie to come in and earn minutes. But the way they played last night, or yesterday against Miami, it looks like they're going to get swept. I know it could be overreaction because it's one game and Trae Young had a terrible game, but they have so many players that need to be fed, and they actually have the depth to where they can make a trade and consolidate some of their talent. So it's up in the air whether or not they keep this pick, but if they do, I kind of like Nikola Jovic, even though he kind of is similar to Jalen Johnson, which means that he could possibly not get a lot of playing time. Honestly, if I'm an agent and if the Atlanta Hawks are going to keep their roster as constructed, I am keeping my guy away from Atlanta because I know that he's not going to get a lot of playing time. All right, at number 17, I am higher on Kennedy Chandler than most, but I have the Rockets selecting Kennedy Chandler. I think Kennedy Chandler can kind of stabilize that offense, give them whether he's coming off the bench or not, but he gives them another guard that can get in the paint. I think he would be like the maybe the best passer on the team. I think Kevin Porter Jr. is a good passer, but I'm going to go with Kennedy Chandler as the point guard of the future in Houston. I think that he would look a lot better with NBA spacing. All right, at number 18, I have the Wolves selecting Kendall Brown. Now, Brown was highly touted. He was a top 5 player on my mock drafts at the beginning of the year, and then I've just kind of soured on him a little bit just because, he just is not aggressive. He seems like he is more comfortable fitting in than standing out, and I understand the Baylor team had their guys on there, but, he was just too reluctant of a shooter or scorer for me. Now, if he can get like that, whatever Nick Nurse put in Scotty Barnes' back to make Scotty Barnes an aggressive scorer, if he can get that, then, you got a steal there. But I have Kendall Brown at number 18 to the Wolves. At number 19, I have Ishmael Kamagate, who I've had a chance to watch play in person twice this year. And the game that stood out to me was a game against Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama is the projected number 1 pick in the 2023 draft. And Ishmael absolutely kicked his butt that game, got him in foul trouble. You're talking about a late bloomer that is full of energy, that has high upside. I think he should be able to extend his range, but at the very minimum, you're just talking about a guy that runs the floor, plays hard, is an elite finisher, has size, and has some decent passing instincts. So I think adding some depth behind Vucevic would be a good situation for Chicago, and Ishmael Kamagate could be that guy. Right at number 20, I have the Denver Nuggets selecting MarJon Beauchamp. Beauchamp is like this athletic defender that is a good cutter that I think would be a perfect complement to Jokic. He'll be able to just kind of score points and impact games without necessarily dominating the ball. And I just think he would be a good fit in Denver. Denver has drafted well, and Beauchamp could be one of 3 players on the G League Ignite roster selected in the first round. At number 21, I have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Ochai Agbaji. Agbaji could easily be a lottery pick. I think he is one of the most plug-and-play guys and NBA ready because he's a little bit older than the guys in the class. You may have some concerns about his upside because he's 21. Not the greatest shot creator, but I think he has a role as a 3-and-D defender that knocks down open shots and finishes plays in transition. Now, I know this would be like a situation where it creates a logjam of wings in San Antonio, but I imagine there will be some movement going on in free agency. Right at number 22, this is one of my favorite players in the draft. This is a guy that has, I don't know how he slid under the radar so much, especially in a Power 5 conference, but I have Terquavion Smith. Smith could end up being a lottery pick. I think he's someone that once we get into these workouts, you're going to see his name shoot up draft boards. He is fun to watch. He's like this skinny, undersized shot creator. He's dancy with the ball, has the offensive creativity that I love and I value, but he's a good shooter. Shot a respectable, like 36% from 3 on a high volume of attempts. This guy is someone that exudes confidence and offensive creativity. He had some of the best games for freshmen this year. He had 2 games over 30-plus points against Florida State and North Carolina. This guy is going to be special in my opinion. And like I said, as we get closer to the draft, he could possibly end up being a lottery pick. Number 23, I have Christian Braun. I keep wanting to say Christian Braun, but it is Christian Brown. But it is spelled like Braun, which is confusing. But what's even more confusing is how Brown was a 3-and-D specialist his first 2 years at Kansas. And then all of a sudden he turns into like this Swiss Army knife. He's like a guy that just he passes the ball well. He shoots the ball well from three. He finishes in transition. He is like this connective tissue glue guy. I don't know where that was the first 2 years. I don't know whether he just made crazy improvements over the summer. He just was not used right. Either way, he is a national champion. And he is a first-round pick on my mock draft. All right, at number 24, I have the San Antonio Spurs back on the clock again. It's like their third pick. After them selecting EJ Liddell from Ohio State. Liddell is this undersized power forward. I mean, he can score on the block, but I don't think that is going to be his calling card in the NBA. He'll be used as a floor spacer and defensive presence. Even though he's only 6'7", he has the timing and instincts of a great shot blocker. He has a long wingspan, but he is someone that could play multiple positions. I think he can be like your small ball five. So imagine a PJ Tucker that shoots threes from different spots on the floor. You know, PJ only shoots corner threes. So I think Liddell could be like a PJ Tucker type that is more so like a pick and pop guy, but also gives you rim protection. All right, at number 25, I have the Nets selecting his teammate, Malachi Branham. Branham was not super highly regarded coming out of high school. I mean, let me correct myself. I don't want to make it seem like he was a guy that didn't have any offers. He just was not highly regarded as a one-and-done type NBA prospect. And he outplayed a lot of the more highly touted and players that were expected to be first-round picks in the same conference. He ended up winning Big Ten Freshman of the Year. And he has this old-school Chris Middleton game. You know, like that old-school game where a guy's at the Y, he has on sweats, and he's got like the gym bag full of like icy hot. But he's efficient in his spots, doesn't do a lot of dribbling, doesn't do a lot of movement. Just 1-2 dribble, pull-up, gets to a spot. That is Malachi Branham with the old-school game, but I think he would be a good fit with the Nets and give them some depth on the wing. At 26, I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting Jaden Hardy. Hardy was a guy who a lot of people thought was going to be a top 5 pick coming into the draft. He is an exceptional talent. I mean, he knows how to get his own shot. He's an advanced shot maker, shot creator, has NBA range. The ball just was not going in this year. He struggled with some efficiency. There was some thought that he could possibly develop into a lead guard. Didn't really get a chance to showcase that, but I mean, he's shown flashes of just being able to get his own shot, and I think Dallas could use a shot maker and shot creator that they can develop alongside Luka Doncic. All right, at number 27, I have the Miami Heat selecting Christian Koloko. Koloko would add some depth at center, even though Miami currently has, I mean, Bam is their guy. You got Dwayne Dedmon playing well. You got Omar Yurtseven. But Koloko would give them a vertical lob threat and another shot blocker, rim runner that they can develop. And if you get into that Miami Heat system and they develop you, they are going to maximize your talent. And Koloko just had a breakout junior year, had one of the best games of the tournament, had a 12 for 13 game against TCU. And he could be someone, again, that Miami develops and outperforms his draft position. So I have Koloko going to the Heat. At number 28, I have the Warriors selecting Jan Montero. Jan Montero definitely does not pass the eye test. He's not like this explosive athlete. He doesn't wow you with, like great shooting. But one thing that he does do is put the ball in the basket, and he gets buckets. And despite the fact that he's not like this crazy athlete, I haven't seen too many guys that can stay in front of him. My first time watching him was in 2020 at the Basketball Without Borders event All-Star Weekend, and I thought he was the best player in that camp. And that camp featured Josh Giddey. And Montero, like I said, he kind of reminds me of Lou Williams. I think that he is going to carve out a niche in the NBA as this instant offense guy that comes off the bench and just gets buckets with his incredible pace and feel for the game and craftiness and creativity. I like Montero a lot. And Golden State, I mean, if you had a guy like Montero, now you have a situation where you have a nice nucleus of young players that you can either package for another star, which is even scary, or that you can develop once the Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green era ends, which, we don't know when it's going to end. Even though those guys are on the wrong side of 30, they're still very, very, very productive. All right, at number 29, I have the Memphis Grizzlies who have so much talent and who have done such a good job of developing guys. I have them selecting Ryan Rollins from Toledo. Ryan Rollins is a late bloomer that was also under the radar. And back when I was doing Locked On NBA Draft, I did a podcast back in like October on Ryan Rollins. And my question was, is he going to be this year's biggest sleeper? And I mean, I think he is. I mean, he's, like I said, he's still slid under the radar. I mean, that happens when you're in the MAC conference. But we're talking about a guy that can potentially score on 3 levels. It has like this smooth Devin Booker type game where everything looks just pretty effortless. Scores within the flow of the offense. Athletic. Late bloomer. Only 19 years old. I mean, he is a 19-year-old sophomore who is younger than some of the freshmen in this draft class. So I think Memphis has the luxury of being able to gamble on upside and take a guy like Ryan Rollins. And then at number 30, wrapping up the first round, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are on the clock again and who love international players. I think there was like 11 international players that logged minutes for the Thunder this past season. So, of course, they need to add another international player in Ousmane Dieng. Dieng was a guy that I thought was going to be a top 10 pick coming into the season. Got off to a terrible start. Terrible start. I mean, the start that he got off to was so bad that his shooting percentage looked more like a batting average than a field goal percentage. But as the season has gone on, he has gotten better. He's gotten more confident. And we're talking about a guy that's 6'10", that can handle the ball, that will be able to defend multiple positions, can be a playmaker. He's drawn some comparisons to Paul George. And he's starting to live up to the comparisons as the season went on. And he could be somebody that could move up into the lottery because I think that he'll look very, very good in workouts. Well, that wraps up this episode where I kind of revised my first round. All right, before I go, I want to talk to you about the Locked On NBA podcast. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament all the way to the last possession of the NBA Finals, the Locked On experts will take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis that will be affecting all 30 teams. Once again, this is Rafael Barlowe from NBA Big Board. And this is the point in the show that I say, I am out.